Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Bob Morris, professor of biology at Wheaton College in Massachusetts, and this is Science with Dr. Bob. In our last episode, I made the claim that we're all scientists, and I firmly believe that because we all follow the core of the scientific method. Those are 4 steps. We all wonder about the world around us. We form ideas about that world. We gather more information to test those ideas, and then we decide what we believe. If the information we gather fits the idea, we keep the idea. If not, we throw it away. Now, what's the difference between that core and the formal scientific method that scientists use every day? It's the formality. Scientists use the scientific method with very strict adherence to the steps so that science is repeatable. And the scientific method gives us a predictable, repeatable, verifiable understanding of the world around us. And that's where the power of science comes from. It's from that scientific method. So, to demonstrate the scientific method, let's do an experiment. Science starts with wonder. We wonder about something that we see. I wonder about sound. I'm curious about how sound works. So, let's come up with, we would make some observations. Scientists look at the world, and the observations that they make help them to form a question. That's all part of the wondering. I'm curious about how sound works. I have some observations about sound. Well, I know that it seems to travel in a straight direction, from me to you. Yes, there's some electronics in between us, but whether I'm here or here or here, sound seems to travel in a straight line. There's one observation. A second one is that it seems to travel in all directions. If you were behind me, you could still hear me. So we then ask a question. What's the sound traveling through? That's our question for today. In future episodes, we'll ask, what is sound and can we see sound? But for today, what is the sound traveling through? That's our question. Then, like all curious humans, next step is to form an idea about all those observations. Well, sound travels in a straight line and travels in all directions. Maybe sound travels through air. That idea, scientists call a hypothesis. A hypothesis is an idea about what we think is true. And sound seems to travel in a straight line in all directions, and there's air in all those directions. So my hypothesis is that sound travels through air. And a scientific hypothesis is one that we can test. And that's what these apparatuses are for. These are to help us test the hypothesis that sound travels through air. So that the third step, we test the idea by gathering more information. All of us test our ideas by gathering information. Scientists just do this more formally. We do it with a series of steps, and the test is called an experiment. So let's do an experiment. We need to set up a system where we can test the hypothesis that sound travels through air. We need a device that will make sound. So, how about this tuning fork? A tuning fork will make sound, and a xylophone key will make sound. And this siren will make a deafening 130 decibel. That's a dangerous level of sound. And I don't like this part, but here, there's the siren. So we have 3 devices here that will make sound. But to test our hypothesis that sound travels through air, we need a device that will remove the air. That's what this vacuum flask and this vacuum pump are for. The cork is upside down because it's going to make the experiments easier. So for this experiment, we're going to design it so that it's repeatable, and that's important in science. The scientific method requires that an experiment be repeatable. The steps that we follow are called the method, and we'll take meticulous notes on how we do it. It describes the whole apparatus. We're going to use a 130 decibel siren. We're going to lower it into a vacuum flask. We're going to attach to the vacuum flask to our vacuum pump, and we're going to pull the air out of this chamber. So let's try that experiment. We've designed the experiment to test the hypothesis that sound moves through air. Now we're going to run the experiment. Okay, we're running the experiment now. We have a 130 decibel siren in a vacuum flask. the hypothesis that sound travels through air would lead us to a prediction that if we remove the air, we can silence the sound. So we attach the vacuum pump, and we turn on the vacuum pump. It makes a little bit of smoke, but as it removes the air from the vacuum flask, and now I can remove my hand from the cork. And if our hypothesis is true, that sound travels through air, and there is no air around that siren, then there should be no sound. And sure enough, I can't hear it anymore. 130 decibel siren, no sound whatsoever. We would now make measurements. We would note the amount of time. We would make measurements of the sound. So it's not just subjective words like it's quieter, quieter, really, really quiet. We would measure the number of decibels because measurements are repeatable. Those measurements are scientists called data. And the observations of an experiment are called the results. And by being meticulous about the method and about the documenting the results, we test our hypothesis in a repeatable way. Science is believable because science is repeatable. And it's led to the prediction that as we remove the air, we would remove the sound. It also leads to the prediction if we add the air back, the sound should be restored. So let's try that experiment. Get ready. Break the seal. Sure enough. We added the air back and the sound returned. So all of the data support our hypothesis, and we keep that hypothesis. If the data disagreed with the hypothesis, we would say the hypothesis has been refuted, and we would toss that hypothesis and come up with a new one. We have done all 4 steps of the scientific method. The core of it, we have wondered about something that we saw, we've made observations, we asked a question. We thought of an idea, we call that our hypothesis. It was a testable hypothesis. We designed and ran an experiment to test that hypothesis, and all the data we gathered supported that hypothesis. We then make our conclusion that yes, it does appear, the evidence supports the fact that sound moves through air. And the most powerful hypotheses then are the ones supported by the most evidence. It's not a matter of opinion, it's a matter of evidence. And the best evidence creates the best hypotheses, and that moves the whole world forward by generating an understanding of the world that is predictable, repeatable, and verifiable. So the scientific method gives us a powerful way to understand the world around us. And on Science with Dr. Bob, we will try some more experiments in the future to understand that world around us. For more information about the scientific method, come to sciencewithdrbob.com. And until next time, keep on experimenting.